Okay, the following is the OA preamble. Overeaters Anonymous is a fellowship of individuals who, through shared experience, strength, and hope, are recovering from compulsive eating. We welcome everyone who wants to stop eating compulsively. There are no dues or fees to members. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, neither soliciting nor accepting outside donations. OA is not affiliated with any public or private organisation, political movement, ideology, or religious doctrine, and we take no position on outside issues. Our primary purpose is to abstain from compulsive eating and compulsive food behaviours and to carry the message of recovery through the 12 steps of OA to those who still suffer. So how this meeting works. At this meeting, we follow a rotating format. On the second week of the month is a recovered OA speaker who will be speaking on their topic of their choosing for up to 30 minutes. And there will also be a follow-up Q&A segment for the remainder of the meeting, where all members are welcome to ask questions of our speaker related to their topic in question. So just to let you know that this meeting is being recorded by audio only, and you'll see the recording sign at the top of your screen. The Q&A section of our meeting will also be recorded. So if you'd like to post a question, please only do so in the chat function, ideally to me directly, and then I will ask the question anonymously on your behalf. But please don't do this until the Q&A segment opens. So we'll just pause for our seventh tradition before we share. It's time for our seventh tradition. Although we meet electronically, we still have Zoom meeting costs to pay, and we also give contributions to our virtual intergroup, which is OA UK EB. To make a contribution, please use the PayPal details which have been entered into the chat. And if you are new, we ask that you wait to contribute until you're sure you want to be here. So today is a speaker meeting, and we're delighted to have Lauren S., who'll be sharing on the topic of discovering the obstacles in our path. So Lauren, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. My name's Lauren. I'm a compulsive overeater, and I've been in these rooms since 2013. I just want to first take a moment and pray and just ask my higher power, loving creative presence, please just use me as you see fit in this meeting and speak through me and express what you want to express through me, and help me let go of any concern about how I might look or what people might think about me, and really just be authentic here and let it be so. Well, I was thinking about a topic for this meeting, and I've never done a share this long. And I was thinking about, I always think about this program and these 12-step programs being, and the book as well talks about it as really being like a spiritual path. And when I was just looking in the big book for something to do with path, this obstacles came up. So, and it just was so perfect for what I had already kind of been thinking about. So I will just read a little bit from the big book, from chapter 6, Into Action, and it's talking about the fifth step. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. And so I wanted to start with where I come from, you know, how things were before program. Luckily, I have plenty of time. I love talking, so this time I have plenty of time to tell the whole story. And yeah, I think there's so many different ways to be a compulsive overeater. There's so many different times of life to begin compulsive overeating. Everyone has a different story. And I remember in my first meeting, no, I think even in my first meeting by then, I really identified, but I wasn't someone who maybe looked from the outside like they had just if you just quickly saw me, I was overweight. I wasn't massively overweight. And I want to say that because I know sometimes people are like, am I overweight enough to be an OA? And I just want to say there's no such thing. Because when I got here, I was maybe like less than 20 pounds, or 15 pounds more than I weigh now. I had been up to about 30 pounds more than I weigh now at my highest weight. And I didn't start compulsive overeating necessarily when I was a child. I don't remember being interested in food. So there's no rule that says, well, you're only a compulsive overeater if you start binging when you're 3 or 4, as some of us have. So I'm always thinking kind of like, in a way, I'm speaking to an earlier version of myself when I give these shares. So, there's no rule that says you have to be a compulsive overeater. You have to have started when you were at some age. For me, it really started in early adolescence. And I remember I always talk about this binge, my first binge, that I can remember. There was a binge when I was 3 where I accidentally ate a bunch of salt thinking it was sugar, which presaged this, but it's the only memory I have. But my first real binge was when I was about 12. And up until then, I wasn't interested in food. I was very skinny. My parents would be like, do you give your child enough to eat? I didn't want to be at the dinner table. I wanted to be playing. I was completely uninterested in food. And looking back, I can now see that there was so much going on, being in early adolescence, you know, many years of being in a dysfunctional household. I think I just got to like a breaking point, and but I was completely unaware at the time. At the time, I was fine. All I knew was I discovered that if I combined a bunch of different things and put them in my mouth, I was like, "Oh my God, I have discovered the secret to the meaning of life. I've discovered happiness." I was uh, obsessed with Harry Potter, and because I had no lived experience of the type of like love that I saw in Harry Potter, or adults being nice or warm feelings. But when I ate this combination of food, which I won't name foods in case that's an issue, I was like, I got it. I actually felt like I had accessed something that I had literally only read about, and I was hooked. And I didn't even know I was hooked. I didn't know I was needing to be hooked. I didn't know that I was fulfilling a need. It was completely unconscious. I think something deep down, and I always say, like, we eat because we hurt. Um, we don't eat for any other reason. We eat because we cannot stand the pain of being alive as we are. And I accessed it, and it's really like the big book says, those feelings of like well-being and satisfaction. I can't remember the other ones from the doctor's opinion, but like, nothing else would create such a feeling of well-being and peace and satisfaction and fulfillment that eating like that did. Um, and I think I was about 12 when this happened. It became a daily habit. I would come home from school. I had the keys to the house. My parents worked late, and I would help myself to whatever was around. Found friends who came from alcoholic families. They were compulsive overeaters. We would get together and clean out each other's fridges. Sometimes with a parent passed out somewhere in the house. We had no idea that we were children who had suffered, um, just unimaginably. Like, we had no awareness of how much we had and were still suffering, of how much that we were not getting. So I had my binge friends, um, and I gained a lot of weight very quickly, and my mom took me to the doctor. And in my mind, what I was doing every day after school had nothing to do with the sudden weight gain. I couldn't understand where on earth I had gained this weight from. And I say all these things because, like, it's just so amazing to me how little we can be aware of things that might seem completely obvious. And that's something that I felt was a theme for this share in general. So, to kind of make um, that to kind of go through, of course, at a certain point, I did start being self-conscious about my weight. I tried to control my weight. My binge friends became anorexia friends. They became diet friends. They became body obsession friends. I got into all sorts of every type of exercise, every type of diet. I went to therapy. I was in graduate school, I went to an outpatient eating disorder clinic, and I remember discussing the fact that I could not stop eating and being looked at like I was insane. And I'm like, these people are the most like trained specialists, and they are here to tell me what's wrong with me, and they're just looking at me like there's nothing I can do for you. They told me it was all in my head. I wasn't that overweight anyways. I just needed to accept my body as it was. That I was just like naturally chubby. Um, and it was only when I got to a point when my personal life was also just completely on fire, and I felt like I didn't even know who I was, that my proverbial uh what's his name now? I forget. Ebby. I had an Ebby who knocked on my door and sat at my kitchen table while I binged and was and introduced OA to me and brought me to my first meeting. And I don't know if that person is still in the rooms, but I I was receptive because I honestly didn't know what else to do. I felt hungry all the time. Um, like it was honestly like I felt my body was like possessed by a demon, maybe. Like, I don't know. I was never full. People said stop eating when you're full. I'm like, I'm literally never full. I went through enormous pains and suffering to lose weight, to keep weight off. I had periods of being skinny because I would do extreme restriction that I could keep up for months. Um, I had read about a diet where a guy just stopped eating for 30 days. I think he took vitamins and drank water. I think he had one meal. And that was like my other only option at this point. I was like, I either do this or maybe I go to this basement at this community center to this meeting. And I really had no awareness of AA, despite being surrounded by, really growing up, I was surrounded by alcoholics and compulsive overeaters. Like my family and all the families we knew were just these people, and I had no idea of what this was. And so I went to my first meeting, and there were big books around the table, and I didn't understand why there were big books there. I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. But and also I was 27 when I entered this program, and I didn't see anyone else in the room who was my age. They were all older than me. So the thing that changed was like when they went around the room and they did a share much shorter than the one I just did, but talking about how, they used to eat certain foods and then feel like they were suicidal, and that had stopped. They had been diabetic and that had stopped. They had been twice their size and that had stopped. And I could see that they were people who kind of had they really even had like a glow about them. And it's like I think even beyond the words, it was probably the tone of voice. It was just what was shining out of them. I was like, oh, oh yeah, like maybe this could help me. And again, it wasn't a conscious thing, but it was that they provided like a step two for me just by being living examples of recovery. And then I basically, I got a sponsor. Lo and behold, once my sponsor introduced me to what abstinence was and helped me create a food plan, I was full. I struggled to eat what was on my meal plan. The 15 pounds that I had been struggling with for my whole life, like dropped off so fast, like I couldn't believe it. And the other incredible thing was that my life was not fixed once I was thin. Once these like magical 15 pounds that I just needed to lose, once they were gone, I thought if I just lose that weight, everything in my life will be resolved. Well, I feel like it's kind of funny because it's like, yes, everything in your life will get resolved, but it's going to take you the rest of your life, thanks to the 12-step program that lost you this weight. So in a way, my intuition was correct, but it knew the answer, but in like this distorted way, because it's true that this program really saved my life. It was not just the weight, it was not just the terrifying, painful binges, the crying and promising I wouldn't do it again, and then finding myself doing it again 5 minutes later. It was, that I think, well, I'll just speak for myself. Yeah, it wasn't any of those like horribly painful things, the shame. Um, that just not having that anymore was obviously I was like infinitely grateful to end the torture, as the big book calls it, that I had been suffering from. Um, but that was really just the beginning of my life. And so I want to talk a little bit about kind of what happened afterward. Because it's been a while, as I shared. That was back in 2013. I think I went to my first meeting. Um, because I found myself unfortunately making a very similar mistake a few years later. And that's, I thought that when I was struggling with my weight, I thought I knew what the problem was. I was just a bad person who loved to eat, and I had a defective body, and I just needed to whip myself into shape and have more discipline and get a grip. And I really stuck to this idea for a very long time, even though it never worked. I was like, I just know what I need to do. I just need to find you know, the wherewithal within to do it, right? I just need to find the self-will. I need to get my self-will stronger and just do it. Like I know exactly what I need to do. Well, the truth is I had no idea what I needed to do. I had no idea I had a physiological allergy to certain foods that meant that, I was going to be incapable of stopping no matter how much meditation or self-will I had. So, but, old habits die hard because, you know, I then went from 2013 or 2014 when I finished the steps and I had one slip in 2014, well, one relapse, I'll say, in 2014 where I ate something I knew I shouldn't eat and I ate it anyway. And luckily it did not lead to a binge, but that was a relapse. So my abstinence date is June 1st, 2014. But I was living in the steps, I was sponsoring, and I found myself with some obstacles that I could not get around. So I'm going to go to another reading was on about resentment on 64. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From its stem, all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. And I think that's like 15 minutes, if not more, right?
That's 15 minutes, Lauren.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So I really wanted to be, just like I wanted to be a good dieter and a thin woman, I wanted to be a good OAer. So it's at a certain point, I feel like my ego, even though I did the 12 steps as they're written in the big book, and I was doing 10 steps. In fact, I was doing so many 10 steps, my sponsor was like, what is going on here? And she actually got to the point where she felt she couldn't really help me anymore because I was so obsessed with my own defects. And it was like my ego grew back and just clomped onto OA and was like, I'm gonna just now, perseverate on this because I had resentments with specifically my father that I could just not get rid of. I read Drop the Rock, which is, oh, sorry, that's like probably not comprehensive proof literature, but I read like AA literature about this. I did, fifth steps over and over and over and over again. I know what I need to do. I just can't do it. I said the resentment prayer. I had experienced a shift when I recognized my part. But just like I did with the dieting, I know what I need to do. I just can't do it. I need to just force myself. I need to just kill this resentment somehow. And I hope what I say isn't controversial, but I'm sharing this because I'm thinking of someone who might be in my position and could be like, I'm doing all the right things, but I'm not feeling like I'm on the beam. I'm not feeling the sunlight of the spirit. Um, and the truth is, sometimes OA is just the beginning. I think people who come to OA from AA, they know what I'm talking about. Because in my mind, I was like, the thing I had sponsored some people who came from AA. I'm like, the worst thing that could ever happen to me is that I would need another 12-step program. As long as it's just this one, I'm good. But if I need another one, God forbid. So like I was like, there's just no way I'm gonna do another 12-step program. And it took me until 2021 when I was on my knees, because it wasn't just my father. All my relationships were I started to realize I was ending up in the same damaged, taken advantage of, neglected, unloved position in, thankfully, not all of my relationships. No thanks to me, by the way. Thanks to those people who were great people. But in that same position as when I was a child. I honestly don't know what. Oh yeah, I know because during the pandemic, my parents and I live in Morocco right now. I was in Morocco during the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, my parents were like, "You have to come home because if the world's gonna end, we have to all be together." Which, and I feeling like literally the worst person on the planet and definitely the worst 12 stepper was like, I was like, "Oh yes, of course, I'll come back." My poor elderly parents who are now in their late 70s and were in their mid 70s at the time. And just the thought filling me with absolute dread. And but I was like, well, the right thing to do clearly is to go, what kind of horrible daughter am I going to be if I don't go there, right? I mean, the optics of this are terrible. And so I don't know if I think my sponsor probably, someone in the program. I was at the time just going to a lot of OA meetings on Zoom, and thankfully that was keeping me abstinent and somewhat sane. And I just lay on my bed and I put my hand over my heart and I just heard, "Please do not take me back there." And that I don't know how I got to that point of being willing to listen inside, probably for the first time. Found myself in another 12-step program, which I won't mention by name, but to deal with, I thought I just needed to get over it. I just needed to get over the resentment. I just need to work OA harder. But as some wise people know, I will never, I'm here right now so gratefully. It's so touching to me to realize how far, not how far I've come, like how this program saved my life when I was probably going to choke on something in my kitchen at midnight and die by myself. I was like, for how hard I was binging. And to realize, like, baby, that was just the beginning. That's just like getting you like out of the womb. But you got a lot of growing up to do that you missed out on all the years that you were eating. And so, and I'm reminding myself of how I was when I was in the meetings when I started, because I would cry in every meeting. The first like 3 months, I would cry, I think, in every single meeting. But to realize also, like, I was just perseverating so hard on, I need to do it this one way. And I couldn't open my mind to the fact that, like, maybe I needed more help. And that's what made me willing to do another 12-step program that is like currently saving my life. I didn't go back to spend the pandemic with my parents. And it was probably the first healthy thing I did in that program, the first healthy choice I made. Even though the optics of it are terrible, I'm really proud of that choice because it was a miracle that I even made that choice. I wish I could tell you then since then I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta keep an open mind. Like, let me just learn this lesson. But no. So something that was also, let's see, I was gonna use another quote here, but really it was just resentment. It was the resentment against myself. And now I'm gonna say another thing that's very controversial, but I heard a lot of people say, if you have low self-esteem, do estimable acts. And I was like, oh my God, that is so wise. I love this. So did a bunch of estimable acts. No thanks to myself. Again, thanks to my sponsor especially the amends. The amends was the first time, my first time doing amends was like the first time I was an honest human being who had any consideration for anyone else other than myself. Who was willing to admit mistakes and do estimable things. And man, I felt incredible after finishing my amends. I can't even, it's not even proud of myself. I just felt like almost like my spine had been realigned, like that kind of incredible. And again, I feel like my ego just grabbed a hold of the program, was like, I know what I need to do. I just got to find the willpower to do it. And that was like, I could not let go of this feeling that I was just a terrible person. So I did more service. I did more step work. I did a deeper fourth step. I kept digging, and all I could figure out over and over again was that I was not good enough. And I would do one resentment and clean it up, only to and like 30 more resentments against myself would grow back. There was no way to become clean, and it was driving me insane. And I insisted, just like I had with the dieting, I just need to try another diet. I just need to do another fourth step. And my sponsors were like, I remember after doing one of these, putting my sponsor through another fifth step, if I can say, she said, you are locked up in your heart, or you are locked up in your mind. You are frozen in your heart and you are starved in your soul. I thought she was going to tell me, you've been a very bad girl and now you're going to do a bunch of punishment and make up for it. And she was like, you are so locked up in there. Because again, like I was just so stuck in this mentality. I didn't realize that, like, when I was looking at myself in the spiritual mirror, criticizing every fault, this person who's going like, yeah, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. That's not me. I am the person on the real me is the person on the other side of the mirror. But I didn't know how to be that person. I just knew how to be this pointing finger. It was like I was split in two. And again, not to get into
It's 5 minutes left, Lauren.
thank you. Yeah, not to go to outside issues, but the truth is I needed more help. I needed more help, and it's been a long and winding road. The second 12-step program I mentioned has really helped a lot of this, because a lot of that is just what I was programmed with as a child. No matter how many estimable acts I'm going to do, it's not going to go away. Nothing will ever be enough. And more recently, if there was anything, I'm like, well, I'm in 12-step programs, but the worst thing in the world that would happen would be if I ended up in 3. So I'm just not going to end up in 3 12-step programs. And some of you are laughing, and that makes me really, really happy, because you get it. And my addiction to proving that I am enough and I do enough and I'm good enough, I clung to that so hard that, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am now in a third 12-step program that is designed to help with that. I still sponsor an OA. An OA sponsee is doing the fourth step in OA. I'm doing the fourth step in this program. I'm so overjoyed to be at a meeting like this. I still weigh and measure my food. I still do a nightly review. I still do I do less than I used to, because my insanity needs different medication these days. So I ingest a lot more literature from the 2 newer fellowships, because I still have so much work to do there. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not that, you come in here and then you graduate and you do another program, or you come in here and that's all you ever need to do. For some people it is, and God bless you, like that's amazing. Some people, this was the last puzzle piece for them. And sometimes it's just a door. It's just the door opening, and there's a long path ahead. So maybe I was called to do this share to remind myself that when I'm struggling with something, as they say, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results might be insanity. And maybe I need a higher power to restore me to sanity. And maybe it's on a level that, like, I don't even have the language or the concepts to be conscious of. And I wish I could say something now about how to turn things over. For me, it's just been the only time I turn things over is when I've, like, bang my head against the wall so long that I'm passed out and my hand just like plops open. Like that's when like I let go of things. Like I still don't think I know how to turn things over. But I guess I just hope that hearing from someone who's been around here as long as me and knowing that like you don't do the 12 steps and then become a saint. I mean, maybe I was the only person like foolish enough to think that, but I think I really did think that. That maybe there's more to the story and more to the journey. And I just honestly wish I had given up sooner and asked for help sooner all along the way. So if this makes it easier for someone maybe listening to this recording to be like, okay, I'm gonna open my mind that maybe like the solution, isn't where I'm looking for it. Maybe it's somewhere else. Just like it happened to me in OA, right? Um, then I will feel very happy because something else I learned in this program is that there's something very, very special here, in that not only do we learn from our own mistakes, we can actually learn from other people's mistakes in these rooms. I feel like that's like a unique thing about the 12-step rooms. Is like sometimes it's enough just to hear someone else about something they did. And I know, and something else that's like unique to this program is that my mistakes become my greatest treasure to share. Um, so yeah, that feels like a good place to close. And just thank you so much, Amanda, for inviting me. Um, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you all for being wonderful hosts.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you so much, Lauren, for taking us on that journey of recovery through the 36 steps that you work. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll now open the Q&A section of our meeting, which is also being recorded. So if you'd like to post a question to our speaker, send me your question in the chat function, and I will ask them on your behalf. And it will just be Q&A at this meeting. There is no sharing for participants. Okay, as this whole meeting's being recorded, we can't do that in this section, but I'm sure Lauren would possibly be willing to post her number into the chat at some point. She gets a moment if people wish to reach out to you directly. That'd be great. Okay, so first question, how do you find balance with the 3 different programs?
The answer is not very well. I mean, first I was like, I need to be doing them all at like 100%. But I remember my very first sponsor telling me, because at the time I thought I had some other issues, and she was like, well, what's the thing that's killing you the fastest? And I was like, definitely the food. So that had me focus on the food, which was the right thing. Honestly, that was the right thing to focus on at the time. And now, yeah, I don't do that very well. And my third program is helping me, is the program about balance. So it's helping. But I can tell you how my ego wants to do it, and I can tell you what actually works. So my ego wants to make like a beautiful plan. And in fact, I'm going to share this with you because like also slash like I'm a very bossy, I think my inner critic and like is like is a small child, but look at this. I'm so proud of this. This is tracking all of my program stuff. So I like to use highlighters that put some fun back into it. But so my ego would like everything to be done perfectly every day, somehow become 3 people who go to a meeting in every program every day and have 10 sponsees in every program every day or something. But the truth is, I think what actually works is listening within and asking myself, like, what do I really need right now? And something that has been really hard for my ego is like, I have had to drastically pull back on OA service because I am insane. And until some of that sanity gets replaced with some sanity, it's kind of better for everyone that I focus on these other programs rather than continue to overextend myself with my savior complex and with my trying to be a good enough OA or a good enough human being complex. So that goes against kind of the gospel of like you have to say yes to every service. maybe you guys don't do that so much in the UK, but in the US, we're like, you have to say yes to every sponsor. You have to do yes to every service request, and that is actually insanity, and that's replacing one kind of ism with another kind of ism. So, sorry, I've just talked myself in a circle, but the fuzzy answer that there's no rule is just like really learning to listen within and be like, what do I need right now? Sometimes I'm like, I really need a meeting in this program. And sometimes I'm like, I really need the grounding of doing some of the service I still do in my OA home group. I really need to go to that business meeting. I need to be here. I need to talk with this fellow in program X. And that's a lot harder than making a bunch of rules and trying to stick to them, which is what my ego would prefer. But it's being like a loving parent of myself, is being like, what do you need right now? So sorry, and I'm extremely long-winded. If there's a program for that, let me know. I'll join it. But yeah, thank you for the question. Great question.
I love that. Thank you so much. Listen within. Yep, definitely had that. Okay, next question. Thank you, Lauren, for your share. You touched on the resentment to your father. Can you share more about kind of that journey and how that's kind of relationship has evolved and changed through working kind of all three kind of programs on him?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I can say, I believe that I am the healthiest I've ever been in that relationship. I can't speak for my father or how happy he is with the results. But the thing that comes to mind is like, if let's say someone hit you with a car when you were 7 and broke, I don't know, broke your leg, let's say, and instead of going to the hospital, you just didn't, and your leg healed in a really weird way. And ever since, you've been limping along and it's horribly painful. You don't have the right, and by the way, I don't mean this to be offensive to anyone who has a physical disability, but so you don't have an adaptation that helps you move through life in a way that feels whole. You might end up with resentment against the car that hit you. And you might do, or the person who hit you with that car, and you might do a lot of 10th steps about that person and pray for them. But let's say they're gone. There's no way to get in touch with them. There's no way to go back in time and undo that. What I learned is that if I'm actually able to, let's say I need to re-break that leg, go into surgery, heal it, and maybe it'll never be the same, but I can figure out a way to get around in the world that works for me, chances are that resentment will go away. And what has happened for me is it's not that the healing is all done, but I finally realized like I was focusing on the wrong problem. I was focusing on the person who had, my parents like did not know how to raise a child and did not give, me or any other child wouldn't have gotten their needs met in that household. But I'm never going to get that back from them. And what was really empowering was a program that has helped me learn and now I have a lot of actually I can have sympathy for my parents, because I'm like, it's hard for me to be a parent to myself. It's much easier to ignore myself. It's much easier to demand of myself. It's much easier to even like in a way exploit myself to try to achieve glory. It's much, much harder to recognize myself as a human being with value and give myself unconditional love. Wow, it's impossible. So even in a way, I even understand better like my parents' like quote unquote failure. But actually being given the tools to heal the damage means like, yes, I do get angry at my dad because he does the same things he's always done. But it's much less over time, because I realize like I don't need him to change, because now I have a way of restoring what was lost. And it's a very, very slow process. Sometimes I'm just like, it's not fair. Like I got set back so much, whatever. We really all do come with these damages. into adulthood, and we all have a different path towards healing them. But I just feel so much more empowered now that there's something I can do about it because I can go to my higher power. Fundamentally, I don't need my dad. I don't need to go into a time machine or have a different dad or whatever. It's like a higher power. Higher power is or is not, right? Is everything or is nothing. So I needed to get a higher power bigger than my family, basically. So again, talk myself into a circle, but I hope that helps illuminate a bit what I've done or what has happened with me. Thanks.
Thank you for the detailed responses. It's good to have that time to do so. Okay, next question. Thank you so much for your honest share, Lauren. So inspiring to hear your journey of recovery. How do you hear from your higher power and connect? And how has that relationship with your higher power developed?
Again, I would say like not very well. It's a mess. I hear people share like, yeah, I just get up in the morning and I do two-way prayer and I just, I have absolute clarity. For me, it's kind of all over the place. So I can tell you everything that's worked. I mean, at first I really only heard my higher power speaking through people in meetings or through my sponsor. Meditation for me, I wasn't that I would always be like, you know, give me the answer. That doesn't work very well. Meditation for me is more just about it's almost just a state of relaxation. I don't often, although sometimes I do get insights, very, very, very rarely, like 1 in 1,000 times will I get an insight during a meditation. Two-way prayer works for me on and off, but it's not something that has worked for me consistently, but I would suggest try any of these things. Going for a walk often helps. Praying for 3 days, which is something that like I have a dear friend from the American South, and she always imitates her sponsor going, now why don't you pray about it for 3 days, honey? And like that works really well for me. It's almost like I'm willing to let it go for 3 days. Like my mind can handle that, and I can just let it go for 3 days. And often like something will just come out of nowhere. Writing it down on a random piece of paper with like no expectation that it will get resolved can help. I know this is sounding like a bunch of random things I picked up on the beach, but I am just not one of those people that's like, yeah, I just, God just talks to me all the time. So maybe you should ask this question to someone else, but maybe also there are people out there who feel frustrated with not connecting. Lying in bed with my hand on my heart, it's really more of a way to also listen to my inner child, which is it's kind of complicated, but really understanding myself also helps me understand my higher power's will for me. And finally, something that came up in one of the other programs was they described, when you have like that feeling of someone you love and you have like that warm feeling toward them. And in the meeting it was like a meditation, I think, or just a reading, and it was talking about maybe, can you imagine feeling that for yourself? And I realized this was like last year, I was like, I've literally never felt that toward myself. Like that physical feeling of love. I've been like in the mirror, I love myself, I love you, blah, blah, blah. But that actual conjuring that feeling of, that feeling of goodwill. And for me, that can melt away a lot of those icy intellectual mountains. It's just like conjuring up that, just being willing to feel that way towards myself can be a way of connecting to my higher power, because that's how my higher power feels about me, just like a million times stronger. So again, a very chaotic answer. I hope there was something in there that's useful.
No, thank you for that detailed response. We've still got about 5 or so minutes for questions. If anyone has any more questions for me to pose to our speaker. Sorry, someone was messaging me, but they hadn't quite formulated their question. So.
Oh, and I think I will put my number in the chat. Sorry, I forgot. I was too busy babbling a long time.
That's fine.
So this is the 212 Morocco area code, but I have WhatsApp and Signal and even Telegram. So my name doesn't come up on WhatsApp with like anything. It's just like a little squiggle. So don't be worried about that. And I was just asked to, I mean, you can try calling. I don't leave my phone on at night, but texting would probably be easier. So yeah, there's my number in the chat.
Okay, so I'll try and do the next question. So this person um, having a lot of difficulty kind of beating themselves, low self-esteem. They find it very debilitating, a lot of anger, self-pity and defensiveness, and dwelling on what people have done. I know you've kind of touched on elements of that. This person kind of says they're kind of on 9, 10 and 11 in the steps. Is there any kind of word of advice and, how they can kind of overcome some of these, really difficult challenges with dealing with the past? Perhaps.
I mean, if the person is in step 9 in OA, like, is that, did I understand correctly? They're working step 9, but aren't doing like 10, 11, 12 at the same time. Yeah. There's still so much to come just from step 9. So I want to offer some very immediate hope that like when you finish your step 9, this is like a before and after. Like you won't feel the way you do right now. But you mentioned a lot of things that I have been plagued with. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to like name programs here, but if you want, you can text me and I can share about the program that I'm in that probably was like the first step toward restoring some of that self-esteem and self-love. But um to just keep your OA, get kind of stable in your OA program and then start praying also just for guidance around that. And maybe hopefully this is a prayer answered. Hopefully if I share the program I'm in with you, that will help you. But it definitely, it has helped me with things that I just could not figure out how to work in a way that were just like incorrigible. Like no matter how many 10 steps I did, they just never went away. But I think it's really important to be gentle and stable in your OA program, and not try to like scramble super hard and like struggle and work really 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 hard to try to get to that other level of um or to try to get recovered faster or something. Like someone said once, like we're all recovering as fast as we possibly can. Like I think easy does it is something that I really love. So maybe that means finding some stability in OA and then figuring out where you can kind of keep that running more on a maintenance basis as you seek your next stage of spiritual journey. So I hope that made some sense. And feel free to text me if you want to hear more about the programs.
Thank you. Sometimes it's hard to kind of ask these in this open format, but yeah, you've posted your number for that person. So thank you for answering that and thank you for the question. Okay, another question. I think we've just about got time. Can you share your experience on sponsoring, especially given you work probably with people in multiples?
Yeah, just like, because, well, okay, here's some concrete advice or experience that worked really well. Like I remember a bunch of us were like all like not graduating, but like finishing the steps at the same time. My first OA group, so cute, in-person group, and getting ready to sponsor. And one woman said, and it was just so amazing, she's like, I was really nervous about sponsoring, but I just realized like she held up the big book, like it's all in here. So all I need is this and my experience. Um, and that was really true. I think anyone who is nervous about sponsoring for the first time, just really do what was done with you. Because obviously it worked once and that's what your sponsor did. I think boundaries are really good, but since like I said, I had no boundaries. Unfortunately, in my sponsoring, like a lot of the issues that I went on to work on in 12-step programs were just so active there. Although that was a place where I began to have clarity around it. I would say talk with your sponsor about your sponsoring, talk with other fellows about sponsoring. definitely a mistake I've made is wanting the recovery more from the person than more than the person wanted it. And it's very sad when that happens. But the worst thing you can do is work the program for them or try to. That's really, that's really also insane. It's not actually helping them. And I think something my sponsor did with me, which was great, is like she obviously like did not care if I continued or not. She was like, this is what it is. Do you want to do it? And she was so cool about it. And I've been gotten really like fiery, like, no, this is so great. And like, trust me, like when you're gonna, you're gonna regret it if you don't, and that's kind of emotional appeal that like never works, right? Like she was just like literally, okay, well, you can come to my house at this time. She's like, you have to go to 3 meetings a week. And I remember blinking at her and realizing like she didn't care whether or not I did it, but if I didn't do it, she wasn't going to sponsor me. Um, and I immediately like reorganized my schedule to do it. So I have made the mistake of being like an easy sponsor and like, oh no, you don't have to do that, or like it's okay, or but there's a difference between like codependency and gentleness. And unfortunately, I think I've been the worst of both worlds. I think I've not been a very gentle sponsor, and I've been like a too like soft and squishy sponsor at the same time. So there's like, and my first sponsor she was firm, she was very cool, she was not attached, but she was very gentle. And maybe that's seeing where the person is hard on themselves and um not co-signing that, like really calling into question them being hard on themselves. So yeah, I hope there's something in there that's useful.
That's great. And I think that brings us to time in the meeting. Can you believe already? So Q&A has now come to a close. Thank you so much, Lauren, for giving so much of yourself at our meeting today. Okay, so the chat is open for people to share their numbers for outreach. If you'd like to share your number, please do so in the chat. And if you aren't an available absence sponsor, please indicate this along with your details. So if anyone who is new, or if you have any questions, we do have a newcomers hub where some newcomer greeters will be happy to try and have a more informal chat with you at the end of the meeting to try and answer any questions you may have. If you are new, and then stay behind at the end of the meeting. If you raise your virtual hand, we will invite you to a breakout room. Please do that before the end of the meeting. Okay, so this group does have a WhatsApp group for fellowship between meetings, for fellowship and inspiration. So please, that will be posted, one of our team in the chat if you'd like to join us for fellowship between our meetings. Okay, so this will get to the point. We'll close the meeting the same way we always close a New Freedom Big Book study, by reading the 12 promises of recovery as laid out in the Big Book of AA, starting from the bottom of page 83 with a paragraph, if we are painstaking, and ending, if we work for them. We usually ask our guest speaker to read those. They will be on the screen if you don't have your Big Book handy. So just if you could, Lauren, that would be great. Sorry, Lauren, would you be willing to read those for us?
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. Great. The promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
And thank you so much again, Lauren, for everything you've given us tonight. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Our meetings do recur on a weekly basis, and our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 15th of July at 7:30 p.m. UK time. But may your higher power bless you and keep you until then.